Hey everybody, welcome back to Melodic Muse. Very happy to be here with my friends at Guitar World, and thanks for joining me. So when I did the Resolution record, which was released in 2006, I'd been working on songs over that previous 5 years, I think. And by the time I'd got to the final concept of what the record was going to be, I had a bunch of songs, but I wasn't really pleased with how they were sounding with rhythm guitars and doubling and all the ways of the studio and making instrumental guitar records up to that point. But something Steve Vai had said to me, because this was going to be another record on his Favored Nations label, my second one. And he had said something on my previous batch of songs where he liked this one particular tune that had just the bass guitar and drum, just one guitar. He said, I love hearing your fingers on the frets because it's not all this other noise and things cluttering up the sound, and he really liked the detail that I was getting in my playing and that kind of thing. So it was actually that little nugget of positive suggestion from Steve that made me think of, well, what if I could do a whole record like that? Like what could I do to impress my older brother, right? And so that led me down the path of then kind of taking all this music, some of which had been composed as melody and chord together, but a lot of it that had not been. So how do I round it out? How do I have the melody and the harmony together and with only bass and drums? Because there's no overdubs on the whole record. It's all just one guitar, performance, bass, and drums. So if I had a tune that was single note, I might need to add other chord tones or other voices in there to fill out the harmony if I thought it was necessary. But this one particular tune is called Gone, and it was, those of you familiar with it know that it was written on 9/11 in 2001, on that day. And much more to the story behind that, and maybe on another video we'll talk about it. But this is one that's really turned into a beautiful chord melody, and in fact the statement of the first melody is before the band comes in at all. And so we're going to talk about how I came up with the voicings to support the melody. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this melody and chord combination for the song Gone. It's a very, very simple melody. It's all kind of G minor-y kind of, all based in G minor. And I remember having the melody first, and I was hearing the harmony, but I really wasn't sure what the harmony was going to be. And so I literally, once I started finding the harmony, the voicings were such where I wasn't analyzing it theoretically, even though now we can talk about that. I was just trying to find the sound that was in my head. And that can be a balancing act, once you have a certain amount of theory, how much of that can actually get in the way. We don't want to always overthink things. It should always be the ear guiding you to what you want to hear, not necessarily what you've taken in with your eyes or you've thought about methodically through textbooks. These are all handy things to know. I'm not saying that's not a great thing, because it is, because it's handy to be able to communicate about the music. But initially, it's just like, what sound are you looking for? And so when I found that first sound, right? It was a very sad day and a very sad moment. But I'd found this voicing, and in the chord melody, way of playing, not always, but most of the time that the melody is going to be the top note. So as I'm playing this melody on the G and the D string, I'm finding notes underneath it to support that harmonically. It could happen above it, but it becomes a problem as far as getting that upper voice to speak out. But this piece entirely is the melody on top with chords underneath, right? So as again, I'm searching for the sound. And and that's it. And when I play this song live, the vision I have in my mind is that I was actually on tour at the time. On 9/11, we saw this all unfold as we all did. We were watching on the cable news, but we were on a tour bus, and we had a decision to make. Were we going to stay on the road? This is with Olivia Newton-John, actually. And are we going to stay on the road, or are we going to continue? You know, every tour that I can recall, everybody went home because we didn't know what the state of affairs was. This was all new, and everybody's in shock. But we decided to stay out. We circled the wagons and thought, you know, we've got 2 weeks left worth of dates. Let's do this. It'll be really great for people to be able to get out. It just turns out that one of our next dates was in Long Island. It's the great Westbury Theater on Long Island. And we had a day off before that. I'll never forget coming up the Jersey Turnpike and seeing the new skyline. And as we pulled into Manhattan, there were church bells going off everywhere because there was a lot of funeral. And this is pretty dark, but it's kind of handy to know the feeling I was looking for. It sounds like church bells to me. It's a very sad, mournful church bell. And it turns out the sound I'm using to get that, it happens to be this very common voicing of A minor 7 flat 5 or A half diminished. I'd never played the shape before, so again, it was kind of cool to not have a certain, as you might call it, a grip, voicings we know sound good. I had to kind of find new voicings that I didn't know. I haven't scratched the Ted Green book nearly enough, but and then I had to tie it together. So that's it's a very common, you know, to have a minor 2 chord and a dominant diminished chord leading into a minor chord, right? This is in the key of G minor, so you have A half diminished, essentially D7, but I'm considering it diminished because it's got the flat 9. That kind of sound, so. So you got the 5th, flat 9, 3rd. There's actually no D in it, but it's clearly a 5 leading into a melody that's the 9th. Now, I'd never played that G minor voicing before, but man, how beautiful is that? It's just a simple G, B, open D, and A natural on top. And then the next chord. This is harmony, and it was pointed out to me later that it resembles a Joe Beam tune. And I'd played a lot of bossa nova. You know, my first guitar teacher when I was 16 started turning me on to some, you know, Roberto Menescal and Joe Beam tunes in my guitar lessons. And that, even though you may not know where it's coming from, that kind of harmony and that kind of sound certainly, you know, influenced me, and it came out in this piece of music. And again, I didn't know what that chord was. It wasn't until I did the transcription book years later we kind of had to figure out, well, what is that? I'm playing an open E, a C sharp, a G, and an A. So it's just an A7 chord. I know lots of voicings, but I'd never played anything remotely like this. What would I just play? See, it's just not an ordinary grip. I can play it in the context of the melody and the arrangement. But after this G minor, it's a really beautiful, keeping that A on top, and then thematically the melody, it goes to F, right? So all I do is keep that G string ringing, make this the primary note, play the E flat, and it's really implied C minor 11, which when I play this arrangement up the octave for the next statement of the melody, it gets to more familiar voicings. But this low stuff was kind of new territory for me. So here's that A over E. There's that F, but I'm gonna voice a whole step below it, note of E flat on the A string. And here's an odd chord. So it's an A augmented, so kind of an augmented 2 chord, but the F and C sharp give way to the E flat. And that E flat really sounds like a flat 9, another kind of like we played up here earlier. Right? Beautiful sound. So altogether, you know, you've got A half diminished, some kind of D7 flat 9, then a G minor with a 2. I get to it. A7, C minor 11, A augmented, giving way to a 5 with a flat 9 sound. And then this little, how would I play? F sharp to G. Just a little melody going with some open strings. F sharp, open G. All right, well, I hope you have enjoyed going through this song "Gone" with me and understanding a little bit about the process and how it was really it was a cathartic song to write because it was one of the most emotional days in our lives, right? With this this tragedy that happened, and music and the guitar has always been that outlet for me. Whereas I grew up a very shy kid. And so it was really a safe place to go and just deal with emotions in whatever way that you needed to do that, be it happiness or sadness or whatever it might be. So this is clearly a very sad song, and what I can look back and enjoy about it most is that I let the sound guide me and the emotion guide me, and I didn't try to overanalyze it. I didn't try to force anything. It really I have to say kind of wrote itself. It's one of those songs where you hear about writers talking about, my antenna was up and it just came from wherever, and that's part of the melodic muse concept and auralect. It's certainly something that I wanted and needed to hear. It's like when we talk about when we're soloing. What is it? What would be the greatest guitar solo you'd want to hear right now? How can I be that? How can I try to rise to that level of what you expect, and then hoping others might resonate with that. And this piece of music is certainly that. And it was, and quite honestly, I wasn't intending to release it. I had recorded a little 4-track cassette demo of it while we were on the road, just to document the song. And it just didn't seem right to release a song written with that subject in mind. I didn't want to commercialize that in any way, but it was my engineer and co-producer, Robert Wexler, and my bass player, Mike Dane, had heard, I played him the track, and so we got to record that. So they had to actually kind of talk me into it. It felt a little, I don't know even how to put it into words. It didn't feel right. But after it came out and after it was released, I had so much good response for it because of the catharsis, because of what the song, it means something very specific to everybody, though, and many different levels of emotion depending on what their experiences were. People that lost loved ones and et cetera. So to have people let me know that this piece of music meant something to them, it was immensely encouraging. And it's nice to contribute some music that can mean something to people, and I'm very thankful for that, and I don't take it for granted. So anyway, but I hope you get some musical inspiration from it and enjoy playing it, and good luck.